Who's really paying the price for Trump's tariffs? Foreign companies are shouldering part of the burden, but how long can that last? Let's dive into today's Coffee Post feature. In late July, while Washington simmered in summer heat, a surprise trade deal was signed between the US and the European Union. Yet rather than easing tensions, the agreement signaled the start of a new wave of tariffs. Most EU goods now face duties of up to 15% when entering the US market, an unprecedented level in the era of globalization. Just a few years ago, the average US import tariff hovered around 2%, symbolizing an age of free trade. But with the resurgent Donald Trump and his anti-globalization crusade, that landscape has shifted dramatically. Actual tariffs have now exceeded 16%, taking the US back to protectionist policies reminiscent of the Great Depression of the 1930s. The big question is, who's really paying the price for these tariffs? American consumers or foreign firms? Economic theory has long held one simple truth. When a country imposes tariffs on imports, domestic consumers bear the brunt. Prices go up, inflation follows, and shoppers end up footing the bill. This was clearly demonstrated during Trump's first term. A 2019 study revealed that nearly the entire cost of tariffs on Chinese goods was passed directly onto U.S. consumers. Americans paid more for the same products, simply because an extra layer of tax was added on top. But this time, something is different. When foreign firms choose to absorb the pain, current empirical evidence suggests that many foreign companies are now accepting part of the tariff burden themselves, instead of passing it all on to American consumers. Take Japanese electronics firm Nintendo, for instance. It recently announced that the price of its Switch 2 console in the US would remain unchanged at $449.99, despite higher tariff costs. Similarly, Chinese plastic cutlery maker Fuling disclosed that US customers have asked them to share part of the new tariff costs. Korean cosmetics brand Tariff, hugely popular in the US, has also revealed it is absorbing most of the tax burden to keep prices steady. Even Japanese auto exports to the US, measured in yen, have fallen by as much as 26% over the past year. While currency fluctuations, specifically a stronger yen and weaker dollar, play a part, Japanese car makers are clearly not seizing the opportunity to raise dollar prices and offset tariffs. Instead, they're taking a hit to retain US consumers. Airfare is up, but what does that really mean? The US Core Consumer Price Index, excluding food and energy, rose just 0.2% in June, lower than the expected 0.3%. While some auto components have seen slight price increases, overall inflation remains under control, surprising many economists. There are two possible explanations. One, American companies are temporarily sacrificing profit margins and holding off price hikes to keep customers loyal. Two, foreign companies with stronger financial positions are actively taking the hit to avoid disruptions to their U.S. revenue streams. A Deutsche Bank study showed that many international firms have reduced their export prices in local currencies. For instance, export prices from Canada, Germany, and Mexico to the U.S. have fallen by an average of 3.6% over the past year, starkly contrasting with the 15% surge seen in 2021-2022. Why are foreign firms absorbing the costs? The reason isn't hard to grasp. U.S. consumers are extremely price sensitive right now. After 2 years of living with inflation, American households are far less tolerant of price increases. A 5 to 10% price bump can cause sales to plummet. Meanwhile, foreign companies, especially in Asia and Europe, now enjoy higher profit margins than they did a decade ago. They have the financial capacity to take a temporary loss to protect their market share in the U.S., the world's largest consumer economy. It's a short-term sacrifice for long-term survival. No firm wants to be replaced in the U.S. supply chain by a cheaper rival from Vietnam, Mexico, or India. But this won't last forever. Despite the seemingly calm picture today, no one believes this endurance can go on indefinitely. Once again, Deutsche Bank's research warns that even though many Chinese companies have slashed prices, it's still not enough to fully offset current tariffs. If the U.S. ramps up tariffs even further, say on August 1st as threatened, foreign firms won't be able to keep prices flat. At that point, it's likely that US retail prices will start rising again, American corporate profit margins will take a hit, inflation will resurge in a new wave, the Federal Reserve will be forced to keep interest rates higher for longer. Ultimately, it will be the US economy itself, not other countries, that bears the clearest pain. A trade war has no winners. Trump may believe he's making America's rivals feel the pain. But in a world bound together by trade, every tariff is a double-edged sword. US businesses, from retailers to tech firms, rely heavily on global supply chains. An iPhone is assembled in China. An electric vehicle depends on batteries from Korea. A Starbucks coffee relies on beans from Colombia or Vietnam. Higher tariffs mean higher costs, and those costs always circle back to American consumers, sooner or later. Trump might win political points by appearing tough on China, Europe, or any foreign partner. But economically, a trade war has no real victors, only those who can endure longer or suffer less. Conclusion: the burden is shared, but will quickly return to the US. So far, foreign firms from Japan, Korea, China to Europe are helping shoulder the tariff burden alongside US companies. They're sacrificing profits, lowering export prices to prevent US retail prices from rising. But patience has limits. If Trump truly follows through with steep tariff hikes on August 1st, the circle of pain will complete itself. Higher goods prices, rising inflation, shrinking consumption, and the US economy will be the final one taking the hit. The real issue isn't who pays the tariffs, but who gets hurt and for how long. The philosopher's perspective, Warren Buffett on why trade shouldn't be a weapon. Amid the rising wave of tariff barriers and Trump-era neo-protectionism, Warren Buffett, often called the Oracle of Omaha, made his stance crystal clear. Trade should not be used as a weapon in foreign policy. It wasn't a political statement, but rather a business philosophy forged over decades of investment and global economic observation. Buffett understands that the impact of tariffs goes far beyond a company's balance sheet or a quarterly inflation rate. He warned that using tariffs as a bargaining tool erodes trust between nations, deters companies from expanding global supply chains, and ultimately slows long-term growth, what he called an invisible but painful cost of unilateral tax policy. In his 2018 letter to shareholders, Buffett wrote that America has greatly benefited from being the world's top consumer market. When other countries prosper by exporting to the US, they also become customers for American companies. If you think trade is a zero-sum game, you've missed one of the most fundamental lessons of modernism, capitalism, he emphasized. What concerns Buffett isn't just the numbers, but the mindset. Because once governments believe they can manipulate trade balances through tariffs, they forget the core principle. Trade is not a battle, it's a form of cooperation. You're reading Contrarian Finance, where contrarian views, hidden capital flows, and unconventional logic are unraveled layer by layer. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss an issue, because sometimes understanding the market means looking the other way. Let me know if you'd like this in PDF or Word format, or if you need a shorter summary version.